Or more specifically, can I have two negatives next to each other? Yes, so it simplifies to y is equal to 5x plus 4 squared minus 7. And you can easily see that from that my vertex, the y-coordinate of my vertex is -4, and your x-coordinate of your vertex is always the opposite of what's inside the bracket. So instead of +4, I have -4 as my x-coordinate, okay? Please do not just write down the final answer. Show your process. Show how you get from these 3 points to your final answer. In academic math, you have to show all your steps, okay? So keep that in mind. Is everyone good with those two examples? That's strictly from Unit 10. The entire Unit 11 guide and Unit 12 as well is going to be about a process called completing the square. It is complex, so you have to pay attention to this. But basically today what I'm going to show you is how to move from standard form to vertex form. Okay? Because remember, standard form only tells us our y-intercept. That's all we get from standard form. Vertex form tells us our transformations, our vertex point, whether it's a minimum or a maximum. So vertex form is, Vertex form is much more useful to us. So whenever you have a problem asking you for a maximum value or a minimum value of a particular situation, you always need your equation in vertex form. As I mentioned before, it's an important skill, and in grade 11 you are going to be doing this constantly, so you need to know the process. Okay, we're going to start off with the easiest type of example, example number 1. And the reason why this is the easiest form, and remember this process is called completing the square, that's why it's on the top of the slide, completing the square. The reason why this particular example is the easiest is because if you look at your x squared, you'll notice there is nothing in front of x squared. My x squared is a positive value and there's nothing in front of it. It's not ax squared. So that's why this is the simplest type of example. Okay, so the first thing that I want you to do, and I'm going to tell you a little, it's not a story, but a situation that you'll always remember which will help you with this particular problem. So we're going to divide my equation into two teams, and you're always going to do this. Your A term and your B term are going to be part of Team A. So let's call Team A Team Albert. That's my team, okay? Team B is going to be what your C term is on, and you are going to be Team B. So this green, anything that I write in green, that represents you. In this situation, +1 represents you. So we have Team A and Team B, and we're going to play a game to help us complete the square, okay? Because there's nothing in front of my x squared, I'm going to play the simpler form of the game. And in order to play this, we need two pieces of equipment. And the equipment comes in the form of a formula. And these two pieces of equipment are very important. The first one is b divided by 2. And the second piece of equipment is b divided by 2 squared. So can anyone tell me what is my b value in this particular equation? Jamie, what is my b value? A, B, C. No, what is my, sorry, not on Team B. What is my b term in the equation? So I have my A term, my B term, my C term. Yes, but is it +6? Okay, so I'm going to take my -6. So this is Team A, Albert, Team U, but this is my A term, my B term, and my C term. In this particular problem, my B term is -6, so B divided by 2 is just -6 divided by 2, which is -3. That -3 is going to be important later on. The second piece of equipment that we're going to use is b divided by 2 squared. But because I know that b divided by 2 is already negative 3, my b over 2 squared is just going to be negative 3 squared, which is positive 9. Okay, so first thing you always do is solve those two pieces of equipment. Now we have to actually play the game. And because I'm the teacher, and this is my first piece of equipment, I want my team to be the best possible team, right? So what I'm going to do is take my first two terms, my particular team, and I want to make my team a perfect square trinomial, so it will be the strongest possible team that can beat your team. So we're going to take positive 9, and I'm going to add it to my team, okay? So you always take that value and add it to team A. This is you, the positive 1, but because your team sucks, we're going to subtract the 9 from your team. So my team's going to be stronger and your team is going to get weaker, okay? Everyone understands that? That is the only step you have to do when there's nothing in front of the x squared. So we can go ahead and solve what is your new value. Positive 1 minus 9 means that your new team value is a negative 8. Okay? So that, your team is kind of done. And I've used this value, so I don't need it anymore. The next step is to take my perfect square trinomial and I want to squish it or simplify it so that I have x minus something squared, or x plus or minus something squared. Now in Unit 8 you learned about trial and error, but completing the square gives us a shortcut. So instead of factoring my perfect square trinomial or my perfect team like I did in Unit 8, all I'm going to do is look to my b over 2 value. What is that value? Negative 3. So I'm going to write that inside my bracket, x minus 3 squared. And if you check using trial and error, x squared minus 6x plus 9 simplifies to x minus 3 times x minus 3. So it's actually giving you a little bit of a shortcut, okay? And so I went from playing this game, I went from standard form to vertex form. This is the vertex form of my quadratic equation. And I can easily see that because this value, there's no reflection here, I have a graph that faces upward, and this graph is going to have a minimum point when x is equal to positive 3, y is equal to negative 8. And that is my vertex. My vertex. So did everyone understand that process? Basically, after I got my two pieces of equipment, I made my team into a perfect square, I took it away from your team, and I got this process, okay? So this was completing the square problem in only 2 steps. In grade 11, you have completing the square problems that take 15 to 20 steps, okay? So we're going to inch our way to that point. We're going to make this problem just a little bit more difficult. So can you write the next equation on the board? We're going to solve this question the exact same way. We have Team Albert and Team U. And remember, the negative 15 represents U, and that number never changes, okay? Because that represents actually U. I know to play the game, I have to have 2 pieces of equipment, b divided by 2 and b divided by 2 squared. Those are my 2 pieces of equipment. Okay. But in order to figure out the biggest problem and the reason why students fail this test is because they forget this one step. A, B, and C. Positive 16 is not my B value. I cannot plug in the positive 16 because, unlike the last example, for this particular example, there is something in front of the x squared. For this question, there's a negative. So before we can start this whole completing the square process, we have to get rid of that negative on my team. Has nothing to do with your team, just on my team. And this